Amit sir is there. मैं स्टार्ट करूँ ना?
Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Yes. Should we start?
Online.
Okay. All the speakers are there, na? Okay, Swati, you can.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. So, respected my seniors and today's journalist media group participating teams who all gathered over here, a very warm good evening and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar, which is going to be organized by the Department of Psychiatric Social Work, RINPAS, Ranchi. Myself, Swati, and I am currently pursuing PhD from the Department of Psychiatric webinar on suicide prevention. Biopsychosocial approach. This webinar is going to be telecasted on Google Meet and YouTube Live. I would like to give a short brief on the topic. These can be difficult times for all of us, as we heard about COVID-19 from is linked to more serious than coronavirus in Jharkhand these days. Around 5%, around 5% committed suicide in the state every day since March 25. According to the data of the state government, 149 people have died by suicide in March, April, and up to June 25. In June itself, 134 people died by suicide. You will all have the, now I would like to say, you will all have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's speakers by typing your questions in chat box. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect them and address them all at the end of the presentation. Your active participation is important throughout the session. Right now, I request to mute yourself to avoid background noises that may distract you from listening to the webinar. I have indeed privilege to have an eminent convener today, respected Dr. Manisha Kiran ma'am. She is Associate Professor and Head Department of Psychiatric Social Work, RINPAS, Ranchi. Since from the last 23 years, ma'am is providing services in mental health field. Now, I would hand over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Swati. And a very good evening to each and everyone who have joined us for today's webinar. I would really like to thank, first of all, our chairman for today's webinar session, Dr. Nishant Goyal. Thank you very much, Nishant, that you have given your consent and honored us to be here to share session in spite of your very busy schedule. Thank you so much. Dr. Amit, our three eminent speakers we have today is Dr. Amit, Dr. Madhumita, and Mittu Varghese. All of the three will be delivering their area of represent take care of. As we all know that that both and multiple lines indicate that COVID-19 pandemic has profound psychosocial impact, and there has been an increase in self-harm and suicidal tendencies across the country, triggered by various factors, psychosocial factors, which has triggered this rise in suicidal ideation and tendencies, etc. And as Swati has already pointed out, that the state of Jharkhand has witnessed around 449 suicides since March to 25th June. That record, this report is from the government of Jharkhand. That says it is around till 25th of June. It has not been updated, but yesterday we had 2 suicides in the state again. One from a BDS student, and another was from an media person. He was a media person who had committed suicide. So all these things has really has a very great concern as a professionals, that what we can do. We all know that we need, we can provide a supports, preventive measure, and etc. has to be taken care of. But still, the things are not being taken care of, and this pandemic has really given us a very bad understanding. Cannot go to it. So, keeping this in view, there is a great need to mainstream mental health conversation, to create awareness, increase self-help, and stigma. Suicide prevention is an important issue that needs a joint effort, and this webinar is an attempt towards this. So, with this two words, who have joined, and media have also joined. So there are varied participants from all different areas who are here to participate and hear about this major concern which we are facing, the challenges which we are facing as a professional. So I hope this will definitely help us out to how Thank you, Swati. Over to you.
Thank In charge Center for Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, FMRI Center, and Center for Cognitive Neuroscience, in charge academics. His affiliation from CIP Ranchi, India. He is also a joint secretary and founder member of Neuromodulation Society, India, as well President-elect Indian Psychiatric Society, Jharkhand State Branch. He is also editor in Eastern Journal of Psychiatry and review editor Frontier in Psychiatric, Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. His area of specialization is child and adolescent psychiatry, non-invasive stimulation. Sir has got 80 plus publication, national and international journals. He has awards and fellowships more than 20 plus. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Swati. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Manisha Madam, particularly Department of Psychiatric Social Work, RINPAS, Ranchi, for bestowing this opportunity to chair today's webinar on suicide prevention. Definitely, suicide prevention is a very, very important topic. More so, it has become important in the current pandemic. अगर आप इस समय का सिचुएशन देखिए, मैडम ने ऑलरेडी हम लोग को बताया है कि किस तरह से हमारे आसपास पीपल आर कमिटिंग सुसाइड, लोग अपनी जान दे रहे हैं. न केवल सेलिब्रिटी लोग ऐसा कर रहे हैं, आम लोग, हमारे आसपास के लोग भी ये सब कर रहे हैं. तो एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट बात मैं आपसे कहना चाहता हूँ. हमारे समाज में एक बहुत बड़ा भ्रांति है कि सुसाइड के बारे में किसी से बात नहीं करना चाहिए, ताकि लोगों को लगता है कि सुसाइड के बारे में बोलेंगे तो आदमी शायद सुसाइड कर ही, जबकि ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है. From mental health perspective, it is very, very important to understand that talking about suicide with someone actually helps a person from committing suicide. 2 मिनट आप अगर किसी के साथ बात करें तो आप एक जान बचा सकते हैं. तो without wasting much of time, I would like to start today's webinar. Manisha ma'am, would you like me to introduce the speakers?
Yeah, definitely.
Huh?
No, I think you have to.
So I will go ahead introducing the speakers today. So we have eminent faculties from RINPAS as well as Central Institute of Psychiatry, Ranchi, who will be deliberating their thoughts on various aspects of suicide as well as prevention of suicide. So स्टार्ट करने से पहले मैं आप सब लोगों को एक बार फिर याद दिलाना चाहूँगा, हमारे कन्वीनर ने पहले भी बोला है कि आप लोग सब लोग अपने माइक म्यूट पे रखें. और आई वुड सजेस्ट दैट जो भी आपके क्वेश्चंस हैं टॉक के दौरान में, जो भी क्वेश्चंस आपके हो, आप चैट बॉक्स में उनको टाइप करें. एंड एट द एंड ऑफ द प्रेजेंटेशन, ऑल द 3 प्रेजेंटेशन, we'll take questions one by one. Manisha ma'am, is it okay? So that we can save a lot of
Yes.
time. So with this, I would like to first introduce Dr. Amit Kumar Sharma, who is the Deputy Medical Superintendent and Consultant Psychiatrist from Ranchi Institute of Neuropsychiatric and Allied Sciences. Amit is a very dear junior of mine. We have worked together for 2 years in CIP, and it's very nice to see your students growing. So it gives a lot of pride to us, and it would be very nice to hear from you, Amit. Then I would like to introduce, after that, I think Dr. Madhumita Bhattacharya would be speaking. Dr. Madhumita Bhattacharya is Assistant Professor of Clinical Psychology, Department of Clinical Psychology, Central Institute of Psychiatry, Ranchi. उनके बाद होंगी डॉक्टर मिट्टू वर्गीस मैडम, हमारे यहाँ असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर हैं डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ साइकियाट्रिक सोशल वर्क CIP रांची में. बहुत खास बात डॉक्टर मिट्टू के बारे में बताना चाहूँगा that we as a team are working very closely towards mental health and psychosocial with the help of various organizations, non-governmental organizations and civil society people during this COVID pandemic time. So with the able hands of Madhumita and Mittu, we have been able to cover, almost all the child care centers in Jharkhand, providing them psychosocial services. Both of them are actively involved in maintaining the psychosocial helpline, which is run by our institute, Central Institute of Psychiatry, Ranchi. के बारे में मधुमिता और मिट्टू आपको आगे भी बताएंगी. So it's a great honor and privilege to listen from three of them who are very great colleagues of mine, as well as Manisha ma'am. So मैं मनीषा मैम से रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा कि हम इनको सुने और उसके बाद हम क्वेश्चन आंसर्स करें. Wish the very best for everyone, and we wish to have a very fruitful and informative session. Thank you. Over to you. Dr. Amit, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Is everyone able to hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
No.
मैं अपने टीचर और मेरे सभी गुरुओं को थैंक यू करना चाहता हूं। उन्होंने मुझको इस काबिल समझा कि मैं इतने इम्पोर्टेंट टॉपिक पे एक वेबिनार कंडक्ट कर सकूं। उसके बाद हम देखना करते हैं कि लोग आज ये बात क्यों कर रहे हैं। आज हम ये सुसाइड के ऊपर Lucas, can you share the screen?
Sir, just wait, sir.
तो जो मेरे दिमाग में जो एक बात आ रही है, बार बार ये आ रही है कि हम आज ये बात क्यों कर रहे हैं, तो सुसाइड के बारे में आज बात क्यों कर रहे हैं। सुसाइड पुराना नहीं है। इस देश में अगर हम देखें तो जो किसान लोग हैं वो काफी दिन से सुसाइड कर रहे हैं। डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस जो है ना, दहेज की वजह से काफी पहले से लोग सुसाइड कर रहे हैं। कम पैसा होने की वजह से, बेरोजगारी होने की वजह से लोग बहुत पहले से सुसाइड कर रहे हैं। तो अभी ऐसा क्या बदला है कि हम लोग आज एकदम से जागरूक हो गए हैं और हम लोग सब लोग बात करना चाह रहे हैं कि सुसाइड सुसाइड सुसाइड। क्या सिर्फ ये एक मतलब एक सेलिब्रिटी ने सुसाइड किया, हम हो गए, आसपास की जो सिचुएशन है वो इतना चेंज हो गई है कि उसकी वजह से हम अवेयर हो गए हैं। तो आज हम लोग इसी के ऊपर थोड़ा सा बात करेंगे।
Your slide on your slide on screen, sir. Hello.
Slide. You are able to see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because
Yes, ma'am.
sorry to interrupt. We are not able to see the slide.
Ma'am, please pin the Department of Psychiatric Social presentation. वहाँ में डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ PSW RINPAS वहाँ पिन करना होगा मैम।
स्लाइड्स दिख रही है लेकिन स्लाइड तो नहीं आ रहा है, तो प्लीज स्लाइड्स कंटिन्यूएशन स्लाइड्स दिखाई देने लगे।
तो आई थिंक जो प्रॉब्लम हो रहा था, लोग उसको बहुत ज्यादा टाइम वेस्ट नहीं करते हैं। हम लोग जो is everyone able to see the slides? Hello?
Yes, I think we can see the slides.
Okay. So I'm just telling some of the statistics that why suicide is suddenly becoming so much important. So we can see the data from the WHO that around the 8 lakhs people die from suicide every year, and from each suicide there is a probability of having committed more than 20 attempts, and around 78% of the suicides occur in low income and medium countries, and pesticide injection, hanging, and firearms are among the most common methods of killing worldwide. So, also the suicide rates in 2008, when we compare it the suicide rate in 2016, they have gone quite up. And men in the age range of 40 to 50 years, they commit suicide more than women, but the women attempt suicide more than men. Also, there is a risk of suicide in the past 1 month was around 6%. The high risk of being recognized around 0.9%. The highest age group was around 49 group. There were more cases in females than males, and the population was mainly from metro areas. And the highest risk of suicide was maximally observed from Kerala. Barriers to healthcare, inappropriate media recording, and stigma associated with seeking help. So, we all now know that this COVID-19 pandemic has affected and has resulted in a quite a high rate of suicide, and there are many risk factors, many factors which are responsible for that, which this pandemic has given reason to. These factors are financial stress and crisis. These factors are social isolation and distancing. These factors are barriers to mental health treatment. These factors are healthcare professional suicide rates, which have gone up because of increased stress level among them. So, one slide I would like to share. So there are a lot of factors which lead to suicide. There are biological factors, there are social factors, there are psychological factors. There are some personality characteristics like impulsivity, external locus of control, hopelessness, any specific reduced memory, and there are some biological factors like some genes governing, like tryptophan gene, serotonin gene. There are some changes in the brain. There are even studies showing a lack of fish oil in the body. So, and one more important factor is the social factor, how the environment interacts with these biological and psychological factors and pushes a person towards suicide. So, in this slide, we can see there are some developmental factors like genes or childhood adversity. Then these factors cause some changes in the brain. Some now we understand that domestic violence, even during this pandemic, it has risen the rate of suicide to around 64%. there is a trend. We are going towards a trend that we don't want to believe in religion and we don't want to believe in God. Shows the person with faith in anything, be it a faith in God or be it faith in some specific cult that has they have lower suicide rate. Like we can see, Muslim specifically have lower suicide rates than atheists or any other uh, uh, religious followers. Location wise, it is quite obvious that 80% of the suicides happen in developing countries because the which we already discussed, we can understand they are more prevalent in developing countries and 80% the social demographic factors is most of these suicides happen in the age of 25 to 40 years. They pandemic because they are socially isolated, they are again more inserted in the internet. And this result in online bullying, and 1/3 of the children experiences online bullying. And every 30 minutes, the data shows that every 30 minutes a child attempts suicide. Between individuals who meet on internet, there is copycat suicide, like if a famous personality dies, or there is uh, anniversary suicide when person on the day. So I do know this. Madhumita, who will discuss the psychological factors which govern suicide and suicide, which are responsible for suicidal behaviors. Over to Dr. Mani.
Hello, am I audible? Okay.
Yes,
thank you.
Muthu. Yes.
Thank you. Vikas, can you please share my slide? So the slides are visible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Amit. Actually, थोड़ा सा टेंशन की बात हो रही है. मुझे पता है कि मेरे टीचर्स हैं यहाँ पे और स्टूडेंट्स भी है, तो एक मिक्स फीलिंग भी है. एट टाइम्स मैं पढ़ाते पढ़ाते थोड़ा वो पढ़ाने जैसा हो जाती हूँ तो if I'm being little teacher like attitude मैं दिखा रही हूँ तो मैं अपने गुरुओं से माफी मांगती हूँ और स्टूडेंट्स को पता है और मेरा ये एटीट्यूड एक्चुअली है ना वो मुझे और मिट्टू को थोड़ा ज्यादा टेंस कर दिया. He told that the specific regions in India which are more vulnerable for suicide is West Bengal and Kerala. But nowadays, why we are talking about suicide is, this post-pandemic situation. I should say post-pandemic. One thing is that when the pandemic, when we started having this idea of pandemic, we were very panicked, very alert. Now, after 4 months, we sort of started adjusting with it. But still we are getting more anxious whenever I'm near and there was someone known to us gets positive with COVID-19. So the issues which were there with us before probably in our society, they were prevailing, it started cropped up more and more with the changing scenario. And with Sushant Singh, with many other famous persons, committed suicide due to many reasons, that had definitely, alarmed us a lot. And just day before yesterday also, we heard which Dr. Manisha ma'am has shared us that, we state also Jharkhand also has observed again, for 2 suicides. Junior resident of AIMS also committed suicide just day before yesterday. So there are more and more professionals like doctors, medical personnel, and even celebrities, which we tend to think about that they are very resilient. We sort of look up to them. When this section also started, committing suicide or maybe becoming more vulnerable to situation, we are blaming this pandemic, but the pandemic has given rise to many other social issues which were, or maybe personal issues which were probably dormant. Now the pandemic has, given us a lot of insecurity. So if there was a lot of insecurity within my own self, that has, got sort of colored or more, vigorous in due to this pandemic. So if I was a very oversensitive person, then this pandemic has given me this opportunity to be sensitive and more be more shocked, more overwhelmed by the things happening around me. So that is how my personality, if there was some tinge in the vulnerability side in the stress diagnosis model, that pandemic has triggered a lot of personality factors within me. So, suicide, if we talked about attempted or completed, ripples like a stone dropped in a pond, basically, spreading beyond the individual to the family, loved ones, friends, and the larger community. So, it's like we are seeing that whenever there is a suicide happen, we start to think about what all we have, what are the things that we can think about our loved ones, maybe. So it's sort of like a ripples that spreads around our own environment. Suicide is not about wanting to die, but rather about not wanting to leave. So suicide is about escaping unbearable pain. So the pain becomes so much that that point of time that individual thinks that it is the only option left for them. So suicide is a means to try and end a situation persons feel trapped. So जब भी मुझे ऐसा feel होगा, I will feel that there's no hope at all. मैं किसी भी तरीके से if there is maybe loss of money, maybe there is loss, repeated domestic violence that the person is suffering from. So there's no one to look up to. There is no one to share that pain. So what do I do with that pain? I may feel that suicide is the only option that is left for me. So I which is the problem. Often they resort to now little bit of theory. We all know from our sociology background that Hamilton basically talked about suicide long ago, and while talking, we know that egoistic suicide, altruistic suicide, anomic suicide, idealistic suicide are the type of suicide that he talked about. Where this altruistic suicide is something that a person there are grouped together, for a cause, social cause, they are committing suicide. Anomic suicide is a type of suicide in which the social integration is very, very disturbed. The person often, get disintegrated, means detached from the society as such. So when we are talking about this, social integration, that means that what kind of a relationship I share with my religion, with my school, with my college, with my colleagues, how can I bank upon them whenever I am in a crisis? So if I am detached, because we all know that social support is the most important resilient factors that is there with us. So whenever that is low, the social integration is low, the detachment is very, very much from the social integration, that that person becomes more vulnerable, to commit suicide. Now coming on to stigma, which Nishant sir also talked about it, or maybe a myth, that if you talk about suicide in front of a person, that increases the vulnerability. It is absolute. It is a absolute no, because जब हम लोगों को सुसाइड के बारे में कभी भी ऐसा लगता है कि किसी भी इंसान में हेल्पलेसनेस बहुत दिन से जनरेट हो रहा है, बहुत ज्यादा होपलेसनेस, the person is trapped by the hopelessness. So whether what harbors any kind of a suicidal ideations or not. Now, last few days back, I saw a child, 15, 17-year-old girl. So she came to us with the problem that खाना नहीं खाते हैं अच्छे से, खाना जो है वो फेंक देती है. Now, जब मैंने बात किया उससे, I found that there is lot of issues. क्या मम्मी का डिवोर्स हो गया था 4-5 साल की एज में, when she was 5 years, and जब उसकी उम्र 2 साल है, तब से शायद वो विटनेस कर रही है the domestic violence or maybe the fight between the parents. उसके साथ क्या है कि जब वो वापस आ गई अपने नानीहाल में, when she returned back to her own maternal home, there she obviously as a child she wanted to play with the surrounding. जब खेलने जाती थी तब उसके पेरेंट्स जो है they used to ask her about parents, and उसके बाद वो वहाँ मोहल्ले से हटके कहीं किसी जगह के ग्राउंड में खेलने जाती थी जहाँ पे ज्यादातर समय लड़के क्रिकेट या फुटबॉल खेलते थे. तो जब वो खेलती थी तो यहाँ के जो उसकी अपार्टमेंट्स के सीनियर्स हैं, बड़े लोग हैं, वो लोग इसके ऊपर नजर रखते थे कि वो कभी क्यों लड़कों से खेलना चालू की. तो one day it happened that one child told that के मेरी मम्मी जो है वो मुझे बोलती है कि आप किस लड़के के साथ आज बात कर रहे हो वो पता करने के लिए. So that was a social situation, was always there, and she was trapped in that social situation again and again. Followed by this, she stopped going to, going out from home as a child, and she started remaining into the house for years together. And also, the mother, the Masi, and the maternal family members also, they also allowed her doing so because that was creating a lot of problems into the apartment. So you can understand that how this social factors and the environmental factors is coming into play to shape the personality. Now her personality has become little rebellious when she was growing up, and then again she was bullied. स्कूल में हर जगह में उसको मोटी बोला जाता था, and she also started developing that idea that nobody understands me, and nobody actually I am not lovable for anybody. Now when I asked the reason for the divorce of the parents, that majorly was there was a problem between the parents, but for a girl child also, that the mother gave birth to the girl child, that is this child, that was again another issue for the parent to get divorced. So she developed a very strong schema that I am never accepted by the way I am. So that anger related regarding the father, regarding the society members, regarding many of the other persons has interjected. Initially, she started, thinking about committing suicide or end her life. But then Masi and other mama, they helped out, and she's a very good student. So she sort of with all those problems, she started doing, this food. So the entire focus going to the food that she intakes. So now is the situation where she was probably 65 in the month of March, and today, the day she came, that is the last week, she was 40 and a half. So can you imagine the scenario with her, that how much she is actually rejecting the food, and developed probably an eating disorder. So that is how this an individual traps within their emotional, personal, and social scenario. And we are indeed, it is needed that as a mental health professional, we definitely ask about that, what they think about suicide, have they ever tried to commit suicide or end their life or not. So it is important. So we are seeing that there is a lot of factors coming into play, both individual, there is family involved, maybe peers are involved, so community and society. There are other factors which also has and suicide is basically an addiction word, but also psychological theories of again, the protective factors, these factors Amit has already talked about, that there can be illness, there can be disintegration from the family and friends, there can be some gender specific, male over the female, some age group, being single, there are a lot of risk factors. So what are the protective factors, and how do we know that? There can be strong connection to the family and community support. That's what Dr. Amit also said, that specific religions, be it any kind of religion, having faith always helps. Being connected to any kind of community support and family also helps. Problem solving and good conflict resolution, non-violent and violent handling of disputes. So if we do, as a psychologist, when we do Rorschach test, maybe TAT, thematic perception test, these are the factors that comes out, that how the person is, resolving the conflicts, how well the person is, handling the stress, be it a chronic stress or maybe a situationally related stress, what kind of a positive attitude the person has, There definitely there should be some restricted access to means of suicide and seeking help. Whenever there is a problem, whether the person has a tendency to seek help or not. So these are the things that acts definitely as protective factors. Now, what are the warning signs, the red flags? Uh, which is which we need to remember that trouble coping with recent loss. Uh, that can be any kind of a grief. It can be death. It can be divorce. It can be moving up. It can be breakups, etc. It's very much prevalent in the adolescent age groups or maybe the young adults. Feeling of hopelessness and despair, if that has become very chronic. Making final arrangements like writing a will or taking care of a detail or maybe closing a bank account. It can be erasing a Facebook account or any other social media accounts as well. So we really need to be aware about our friends who are there, just maybe virtual friends. Also we can be really aware as a mental health professional why the person has withdrawn himself or herself from the social network site as well. So we really need to aware about it. Now, triggering situations can be anything due to this pandemic. Last Friday also I got a more than 40 years age person who was a trainer in a corporate world has lost his job due to pandemic, and that has raised his increased suicidal ideations in him. Unemployment, migration as well. We are seeing that migrant laborers, we we need not to say that they are migrant laborers, but the laborers who maybe shift their place from the workplace to their employment place, they are also in a very much risk. Gathering of lethal weapons, giving away their prized possessions. I was speaking to in another webinar that I remember of my very independent old age client. He got a lot of possession prize, even President Award as well, which he started distributing to the neighborhood boys and girls when they used to uh, win in their badminton competitions, while the person was in severe depression. So you can understand, that any point of time a person can, resort to uh, committing suicide. So even dark themes in writing art, music, lyrics, uh, sudden changes in personality or attitude maybe has become very violent. Very suddenly has become very calm and quiet. Maybe the person was very jovial. He used to crack jokes and all. His personality or her personality has suddenly changed. Appearance also has changed. Started using more of chemicals that can any kind of a substance. So with this, a person may can say also these verbal indications that I can't go on anymore. इस तरीके से और नहीं चल सकता. I wish I were dead. My life is of no importance to anybody. These are the statements also often a person can make. So we really need to be aware about that. Now, a person will show the behaviors in which they will show there is no life, there is no hope for future, and they may talk about death repeatedly, and this can start hating themselves. There is a lot of self-hatred talks, and they may think that why the reason why I am here, I am alive, still alive. So these are the issues that can come up within the person, before this. So we need to take all those things as a warning signs. So I'm not going into the details of at-risk populations. So now may I know that how does the word suicide make you feel or make us feel? Can we have a sort of discussion over here? Uh, Maybe when ma'am Amit, if we think that we heard about any suicide, what does this feel?
Uh, what the first thing that comes to mind is the person has lost all hope, and he doesn't have anyone or anyone to share his feelings with.
Yeah. Now, on internet, you think about that, the word suicide, or somebody has committed suicide. That alarms us. How do you feel? Yes, you feel very bad that you feel you would have helped him or her at a particular point of time. Otherwise, also when somebody is coming to you and discussing some problems, most of the time we think it's okay, it's a simple problem. But for the person who is telling that, it's a very important problem. So that is a need. There we found the need for acting as a mental health professional. We found the need. We have discussed it earlier also. For the platform, we found that every single person who comes with a problem, we have to listen them properly, because that may be because I am discussing in my slide also about communications. Because they always, before committing suicide, they always try to communicate that that I wanted to commit suicide, but we don't bother about that. So that's an important point. So we have to listen to them, what they wanted to say. If anybody comes to you with this, you want to say anything?
Uh, one thing that comes to mind is why did he committed suicide? Why Sushant Singh Rajput committed suicide? He was a good actor. He was a promising actor. He had a good future. He could have tried. He would have definitely got something, and he didn't need it try. Same with everyone else. Like why? ऐसा क्या चीजें हो जाता है बच्चे हमारे जो क्लास के बच्चे जो हैं उनको ऐसा क्या हो जाता है कि उनके दिमाग में ऐसा क्या चीजें क्या चीजें उनके दिमाग में परेशान करती हैं उनको कि उनको लगता है कि ये जिंदगी खत्म करना ही उनका एक ही मात्र एक ऑप्शन है उसके आगे वो और कुछ सोच नहीं पाते why don't they seek help why don't they help why don't they communicate with their friends or do they have friends or not or do they have friends who have with whom they can communicate do they have parents with whom they can communicate and if these are the problems then where is our society going तो ये वाई एक मेरे दिमाग में जरूर आता है जब भी मैं किसी के सुसाइड के बारे में सुनता हूँ तो मेरे दिमाग में वाई जरूर आता है कि लेबरर का सुसाइड जो जिन लेबर को अपने पेशेवर से अपने रेसिडेंशियल में जाना पड़ा उनको नौकरी नहीं थी उनको पास पैसा नहीं था और उनको सुसाइड हो सकता है उनमें से किसी ने सुसाइड किया है ना या फिर और भी काफी सारे सोसाइटी किए तो क्या हमारी सोसाइटी क्या इतने गरीब है कि हम लोग एक आदमी का भार नहीं उठा सकते और या तो फिर क्या कि हमारी सोसाइटी इतना इनसेंसिटिव है कि हम लोग अगल वाले लोगों से बात नहीं करते हैं अपना फीलिंग शेयर नहीं करते हैं और इसलिए शायद जानते ही नहीं है कि मेरा पड़ोसी जो है वो कैसा फील कर रहा है या मेरा 4-10 घर दूर जो आदमी रहता है वो कैसा फील कर रहा है क्या उसके घर में आज खाना बना है क्या उसके घर में 10 दिन का राशन है या क्या उसको और किसी चीज का दिक्कत है क्या इसी तरीके के क्वेश्चन मेरे दिमाग में आते हैं और मेरे ख्याल से हम लोगों को मतलब एकेडमिक पॉइंट तो ठीक है हम लोग जानते हैं हम लोग समझते हैं वी आर एकेडमिशियंस और हमारे पास हम लोग किताब पढ़े हैं लेकिन हमको ये सब चीजों के ऊपर भी बहुत ज्यादा ध्यान देना पड़ेगा हम लोगों को सोचना पड़ेगा कि ये फैक्टर्स को हम लोग किस तरीके से एड्रेस करें किस तरीके से अवेयरनेस फैलाए सोसाइटी के अंदर कि वी आर देयर है ना एंड वी आर देयर टू हेल्प यू व्हेन यू आर इन द लास्ट स्टेप जब आप कुछ नहीं कर पा रहे हैं एंड वी आर देयर टू हेल्प यू जब आप उससे थोड़ा पहले हैं हम आपका कम्युनिकेशन स्किल इंप्रूव कर सकते हैं हम आपको बात करने का तरीका सिखा सकते हैं हम आपको आपके जो डिप्रेसिंग थॉट्स से कैसे डील करें उसके लिए हम दवाइयाँ दे सकते हैं हम थेरेपी कर सकते हैं है ना तो हम लोग हैं, और ये मैसेज हमको सोसाइटी में मतलब इस सुसाइड जरूरत है।
Thank you, Amit. So basically, that is the reason why suicide, criminal act है, suicide किया गया है, और and that is the reason why हम लोगों को इसको लेके बात करना है. Sure कि Department of PSW, RINPAS, they have the main motto of spreading that awareness, right? So this they don't सोचा और अभी सोचा सुसाइड करना वो बहुत ही कम सिचुएशन में होता है, and young boys and girls only do this. That is also not true. People serious about suicide can't be helped because उन्होंने सोच लिया है, ऐसा भी बिल्कुल नहीं है. And people who talk about suicide are just attention seekers, जो ज्यादातर समय हम लोग मानते हैं कि they are teenagers, they do not have any, कुछ प्यार किया होगा, ब्रेकअप किया होगा. It's not like that. It's something very, very serious, and the person feels very, very trapped inside the emotional pain. Talking about suicide might give someone the idea of doing it, so that is also not true. Repeatedly, we are trying to establish that fact. So we need to destigmatize stigma जो है suicide लेके the suicidal thoughts किसी को आ रहे हैं. Any person and every person, even a mental health professional, any medical personnel can also have this idea, suicidal thinking. जो हम लोग देख भी रहे हैं डॉक्टर्स के अंदर भी, मेडिकल प्रोफेशनल्स के अंदर भी बहुत सारा सुसाइड हो रहे हैं. So there is a lot of individual factors, social factors, environmental factors, जो कि हम लोगों ने ऑलरेडी डिस्कस किया है. आया है, हमारे स्ट्रेस टॉलरेंस में थोड़ा चेंजेस आया है, पॉवर्टी तो ये सब इश्यूज थोड़ा पैंडेमिक ने इंक्रीज किया है, जिसके वजह से भी हम लोगों को और थोड़ा अवेयर होने की जरूरत है. एंड मैंने ऑलरेडी ये सब फैक्टर्स डिस्कस किया है, रिस्क फैक्टर्स, प्रोटेक्टिव फैक्टर्स. नाउ व्हाई दिस सुसाइड प्रिवेंशन इज इम्पोर्टेंट. हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि every 40 seconds there is suicide happening. There is varied age group. It can be 15 to 29. It can be 40 to 49. So there is varied age group, and suicide has become nowadays increasing as well. So suicide prevention strategies में हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं? We need to intervene environmental situation को सबसे पहले, and we need to reduce the access of methods, enlighten the media reporting, cluster prevention करना है, जैसे awareness फैलाना, एक साथ बहुतों के पास पहुंचना. Individual situation में we need to really definitely identify and it's easy identify the easy access. Education, crisis line, helpline करना है, देना है उनको. साइकोथेरेपी में डेफिनेटली हम लोग डायलेक्टिकल बिहेवियर थेरेपी एंड सॉल्यूशन फोकस थेरेपी कर सकते हैं. लेकिन सबसे पहले जो जरूरी है वो है कि थोड़ा अवेयरनेस बढ़ाना, मीडिया को अवेयर करना, स्टिग्मा रिड्यूस करना, और एवरी इंडिविजुअल जब सुसाइड थॉट्स हार्बर करते हैं तब एक वार्निंग साइंस होता है, उसके बारे में भी थोड़ा सा अवेयर होना. Definitely healthcare workers, mental health workers, emergency healthcare workers, school teachers, हम लोग टीचर्स को लॉकडाउन के दौरान we run camps in military camps, because there is lot of vulnerability in military sections as well, and we have training the nurse, that how they can modulate their emotion, how they can have calm when they get frustrated, when the situations is not in their favor. So we really need to be aware and make them aware, make the society aware that suicide is, we need to talk about it. So we need to listen. We need to be empathetic. We need to be non-judgmental. So जब से ही सुशांत सिंह राजपूत की बात आई, तब से हम लोग एक बहुत अच्छा बात सुन रहे हैं कि ध्यान नहीं ध्यान दो. Because as a professional also, we definitely in the first second section we jump to giving any person advice. In case of suicide, it is important that we listen to the person as long as possible. Let them have their catharsis. Let them they talk their heart out. What is actually what are the pains that they are suffering from? How intense the pain is. Now, whenever there is possible, we can provide the guidelines or provide the help. That is how we need to become empathetic and non-judgmental. We all know that let us not jump into the conclusion that के छोटे बच्चे हैं, इनको ब्रेकअप हो गया, इस वजह से ऐसा हो गया. जैसे वो जो 17-year-old गर्ल की बात मैं कर रही थी, she said that कि मैडम मेरे आसपास के सब लोग बोल रहे तुम्हारे बॉयफ्रेंड ने कहा है क्या, इसलिए तुम weight lose कर रहे हो. So they we need not to jump into the conclusion that इस वजह से ही उसने ऐसा किया है. We need to offer hope. Do's and don'ts of suicide prevention is basically definitely do's is remove the opportunities. It do not do prevent isolation and involve significant others. Use self as instrument of as well. Don'ts may do not worry about saying the wrong thing. Do not consider suicidal person as special. Do not assume ability to solve problems. These are the things that we need to remember. Do not to be aware of while we are providing help to a person. Establish rapport definitely is important. Mind it that in the first session, a person has come to a stranger, that is us, even if they can, if they at all can reach to us. Many of the time they cannot actually reach to us, the mental health professionals. They may reach to any other doctor, maybe their friends and peers. So that's why it is important, or maybe teachers, that we make them aware and we make them understand how to listen, without interrupting, how to listen non-judgmentally. So there is important of reflective listening as well. कि जैसे उस बच्ची के बारे में मैंने बताया, पूरा सुनने के बाद मैंने कहा कि हाँ, मुझे समझ में आ रहा है कि बहुत सारे चीज़ों के कारण बहुत सारा इमोशनल पेन एक साथ पेंट अप हो गया है. एंड लोगों ने जिस तरीके से हर लेवल पे तुम्हारे साथ बिहेव किया, इट सीम्स दैट you feel rejected from everywhere, and you also started feeling that I cannot be accepted as the way I am. And the moment she said that, yes, so you are absolutely right, exactly. So that is how we need to reflect back to them whenever we are talking to a person. So there should be some safety plans as well, that how we can make them safe, and we need to assess the intentions, the plans and lethality, how much is there, and do not leave them alone. Talk to that friend. If your friend or anybody else is harboring suicidal ideas, so show concern for the person, and do not think that whether my way is right or wrong. Whatever way is possible, you need to extend your support. You can quarrel, you can talk, you can argue, but make the person engage with something or the other. try to solve the problem, and conflict resolution is important. Tell the family members also, and ask the person that what I know that that situation is very very difficult, but still what are the strengths, what may be the one single strength on which you have banked upon already. That the child said, the 17-year-old girl said that कि मेरा पढ़ाई, and that 40-year-old man said that कि मेरे को लोगों से बात करके बहुत अच्छा लगता है, I am a trainer, so whenever somebody got help out of me, I used to get lot of happiness after I used to offer them financial help as well. So now when that is not possible, you cannot offer financial help. What is the another strength that you can bank upon? He said nothing. He was so devastated. Then I offered him, this kind of a meaning of life wala ek, idea that whenever I am seeing that you are a person who wants to help people, so can you call few people whom you have provided training? Can you call them and ask about their situation? Uh, Even if you asking about their situation, talking to them also can be a lot of help for them. He said yes. I really did not think about that, but now I can really think that I can do that. So that is the person at the night morning 3 o'clock. He felt extremely suicidal. He came to us, and after all those discussions, he asked for another appointment. So he's still alive. That is how we can actually give them a reflective listening, and at least listen to them non-judgmentally, so and provide some hope if possible for that particular session. We can extend our support as we can think of. So gratitude and generating positive thoughts is another way of building up hope. Now I'm slowly coming to the end of the presentation of mine. There is solution focused approach where the person, if at all we are being able to make him or her amenable for the therapy, there we can ask them to invite the person to describe the situation in detail, listen and try to understand the person, how they are conveying the pain, worry and their difficulty, and definitely acknowledge and validate how trivial that can sound to us. It is the problem of the person, so it is important for them. Find exception, amplify what is working than what broke. So it is very very important. Yes, you were a person who is very very helping in nature. So that was actually helping you out throughout. एंड दैट इज द पॉइंट ही सेड यस. एंड बहुत समय मेरे दिमाग में जब सुसाइड का ख्याल आता था तो मुझे लगा कि दे माय जिनको मैंने ट्रेनिंग दिया, those persons used to look up to me. So what do they think about their own life if I commit suicide? So that is how we can amplify the possibilities of the person's strengths, and then slowly bring them to the discussion that what might you be thinking. Let us suppose that if you have resorted to suicide, and you have died, and you are at your funeral as a spirit looking down from about 10 feet. So what might you be thinking about another option you could have tried first? At this funeral, who would be the most upset amongst the mourners? What advice would they have wanted to give you regarding another option? So that is how we can facilitate this discussion, and bring the person into the discussion and ask them to describe the worst case scenario. So that is how we can actually bring them into the therapeutic situations, and definitely structure their daily routines. The positives of daily routines are not when we start doing anything, even in 5 minutes of stretching, relearning some old skills, maybe reading one page of a book, that gives us a feeling that if I am doing this thing, I am worthy. So and then followed by this the thought record, their feelings record, and after the exercise how they are feeling. So what if suicide occurs despite all of your best efforts? Try to remember that suicide is an individual decision, So nobody's can be blamed for it. It is a very personal decision of a person. No one else can ever take the responsibility for another suicide. So whenever this happened after a lot of effort, then we really need to be providing some psychological first aid to us as a professional if we are treating that individual, or provide some psychological first aid and some crisis response intervention skills to the family members and friends who were also trying. So this is how we can actually help a person and help anybody to save a life. And decriminalization of suicide, in recent mental health act, it's definitely a very important and needed step. And in September we observe suicide prevention day. That is also important that we raise hope in the people, in the community. We spread awareness as a mental health professional, and we say that the bravest thing is one can do is to ask for help. So that is how it is. Hope is amazing. Thank you so much for listening and giving this opportunity.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Manisha ma'am, Chairperson Dr. Nishant Goyal, and the organizing committee team members. I express my gratitude for giving me this opportunity to this evening in presenting the role of family in suicide prevention. Because the slide is visible to everybody.
Yeah.
Because am I audible? Visible?
Ma'am, just wait, ma'am. Just wait. Yes, ma'am. It's audible, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh,
And the
okay.
slide is visible.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible.
Okay. So, suicide is one of the most tragic types of death, and what makes it more tragic is the fact that many of these tragedies probably have been prevented. Okay, and suicide can be an act. All of we know that family is the first social unit in which we live. The first family setting we experience is setting where we first become our separate selves, and we derive many shaping lessons from the family through socialization. And the individual is inwardly born to the family, no matter how hard the person strives to break the ties. So that's why the role of family is more important in suicidal prevention. And research on the family's role in preventing suicide from an attachment and family systems perspective spoke about three family concepts which we all know in suicide prevention. This concept is known to all of us: family cohesion, family adhesion, and formation of a new family. Now let us see how these is coming out in suicide prevention. So the suicide is considered as an intolerable pain, and between two. One is one person tries to commit suicide. The one at the one end he thinks that the total solution to the intolerable pain will be there after committing suicide. Another is cessation of the pain altogether by ending one's own life. So it is considered as an intolerable pain. So the psychological needs, Murray Murray suggested that frustrated psychological needs are a common stressor in suicide. As we all know, achievement, affiliation, aggression, autonomy, counteraction, diffidence, and all these things which is discussed on the slide can contribute as stressors as a part of psychological need in committing suicide. Then there is a concept called pre-suicidal affective state. This is coming out from the attachment theory, and Schneidman described the pre-suicidal affective state as perceptual constitutions with tunneling, focusing, or narrowing of the range of available options. When the pre-suicide affective state, when somebody is trying to decided to commit suicide, and that decision stage is the pre-suicide affective state, and in which the person himself tunnel himself, focus, and narrow his options around the world, so that he get into committing suicide. Then they take a term called positive introjected objects. Positive introjected objects are nothing but people who are near and near us, like mother, father. So, positive introjected objects, which usually provide life-sustaining affective self-regulation, are not in the individual's consciousness when some trying to commit suicide. Here, the role of family is in maintaining a stable emotional state for the patient who is trying to commit suicide, and in suicide prevention is very important. We have to use a psychodynamic as well as an attachment theory perspective in involving the family in the treatment of suicidal patients. So then there is a fear, abandonment fear. Because humans are social beings whose multiple needs are met within a family structure. So always noted that there are certain parents who create severe anxiety in their children when they threaten them with abandonment if they misbehave. Like usually in our families, when a child is not obeying us, he says, this is exactly trying to say. And this abandonment fear, this childhood can later life of the child. There are certain couple step Kaplan model discussed, focus on the balance that an individual must maintain between individuation and attachment. And let us see what are these couple types. They discussed about 3 types of couples who are associated with likelihood suicide. As we all know, without any boundaries, they are totally disengaged from each other in their activities and in the rejection. Indian couples, one is kind of being trapped in the relationship, the other is and these people can suicide attachment. This type of attachment, one secure individuals can this is people healthy and anxiety, rejection, close relationship, researching this is then preoccupied. The preoccupied pattern is also associated with anxiety in close relationships, but the anxiety is managed by active pursuit of closeness and reassurance from others, reassurance significant others, especially the family members. We are speaking all these things in the context of family. The other attachment style is dismissing. The dismissing pattern involves high self-esteem and a defensive maintenance of autonomous distance in relationship. Like dismissing, like some people, because of the high self-esteem in one of the family members, he or she will not accept what you are sharing in a family meeting. So he or she will be very defensive to your suggestions, proposal, for any decision making in the family. So among all this, one which is the fearful one as well as the preoccupied. These people, those people who have attachment on these two, are having more chance to commit suicide. Then there is a family like symbiotic families. Symbiotic families are very enmeshed families. They do not allow separation of or autonomy in or freedom of individuality. The normal growth and development of family members is still express to the point to commit suicide. So, symbiotic families, the person who is feeling sophisticated and committing suicide. Then, deterioration of the family structure is also contributing to suicide. This can be by loss of a loved one because of the age, natural death of our parents, death of other family members, organization and social isolation. So this comes in. Family and more intergenerational caregiving. So those people who are in touch with extended families or a type of joint family system help us in prevention or suicide in an individual. Then rigid and inflexible families. In the setting of a rigid and inflexible family, the family is unable to adapt to a death. Suppose you have seen in certain families when somebody died, the person who is very emotionally attached, he will be mourning more, and he is more death of a person, and he is more person forced to conflict and person is more family member will be scapegoated by the other family members. So when the conflict becomes unbearable for this particular scapegoated individual, the individual will so alone and abandoned by the other family members. So this will also lead to commit suicide. Then suicidal communications, as I have discussed with my colleague Madhumita, that most of the people who like to communicate. So suicidal communications are heard more often by family members and intimates by family members and the near ones than the professional people. But what happens is that even in the pre-suicidal stage, it makes a fatal effort to keep the family hands to him or her. This also explains the tremendous gift that the families of persons who complete suicide, that their presence was not enough to prevent the suicide, and they should have done more. So, finally, the commit suicide, family members see that. So, all risk factors. Can be contributing to the suicide of an individual in a family. Now let us see what are the factors that can be functional as was discussed, which will help and which will support an individual from not committing suicide. So one is unity and commitment feeling that ensures unconditional support, respect of the difference between individuals in a family, autonomy, self-needs of the different members, and facilitating self-development and well-being of all the generations. Like in a family, there may be three family generations. One, for example, a silly example is one will be wearing just churidar and all. one will be wearing short dress. So the elderly people may not able to facilitate these fashion and all, but still those in a family where these things are considered to an extent. So this is a very in support and similar distribution of the authority and the responsibilities. These separate systems are effective and it gives the sense of stability in a family. Those who can accept a parent's authority and leadership will also help us in preventing suicide from the family, through the families. Or organization with clearness, consistency, and predictable interaction patterns. In some families, as we know, in schizophrenic families and all that are doubled by communication, we know so many theories of that. So these are not good. So it should be clear, it should be consistent, and there should be a consistent interaction pattern in the family. Adaptability, we all know flexibility to satisfy other members' needs that may changes. Like for example, there's a particular stressful situation for an individual. For example, change of the job. So we all have to adapt to his or her needs. The all family members. No, I'm not telling about the society. I'm especially speaking about the family members. Then open communication with known rules and present interaction is very much missing in the families. But this is a very good character of a good family. So open communication has to be facilitated. The ability for problem solving is very important. Shared views of life that enables familiarity, principles, and interests in society in the present life. We can have discussions on politics. We can have discussion on the things and other social issues, which give a platform to share the views or ideas. So it will also enrich the family environment. Then economic and psychosocial support resources that ensure the well-being of all the family members. So these are certain of the characteristics of a good family. Suicide. What is the role of family relationships? So here the family therapists initiate a process which helps in promote family representation and forming a new family increase or improve family. The attachment family therapy is really they try to deal with the family in a different inside it. So attachment theory serves as a main theoretical framework to guide the process of preparing problem states and adolescent problem state. In parent problem state, which includes criticism, hostility, personal distress, parenting skills, and disengagement, these problems are sorted out in this attachment and negative self-response, poor affect regulation, and disengagement. Intervention tasks include relational reframing, building with adolescents and with the parents, and addressing the attachment failures and building communities. So attachment theory in rebuilding the family cohesion in a family, then attachment we have to exercise. Families have to re-awaken the positive effect elicited by positive introjected objects in the whole of the perspective of the suicidal. Because we know about the schema that the negative schema of a suicidal patient. So we have to re-awaken positive projected objects. Positive projected objects are nothing very mother, father, our person with whom we are related. So this is that. And then mention others state that the most Indian therapy is that the therapist provides support to the patient. Loneliness at a tolerable level by the patient plans. So another thing that family therapist is we have to keep the tolerance level of the patient at a very low level because suicide patients always have a feeling of tolerance. That's why because they commit suicide. So So it is very important for the therapist to moderate this. Then they stated that for transference, the patients are allowed to express and deal and or how to express and deal with or negative aspect of it. So the person is maintaining health. So therefore, it is not sufficient just to evoke previously experienced positive memories in therapy, as said by the attachment theorists, but we have to take the help of psychodynamic theory also. But the patient must have the ongoing affective experience of feeling. There, the psychodynamic role is coming. The patient have to experience the feeling of nurturance and cared for in the current relational world. So the attachment theory and the psychodynamic aspects come into play while doing family therapy with a patient with suicidal ideas or all attempt to suicide. So Winnicott refers to a holding environment which needs to be created by the therapist and the family. So the holding environment will be very soothing to the should be very soothing to the it will be very soothing to the person who is thought of committing suicide. The childhood functions are gradually internalized through innumerable interactions with the child. So thus becoming self-evocative intrapsychic structure will come, because that is why the very formative age 0 to 5 is a very important time in a child's life, because the caretaker, how she or he is interacting with the child will gradually internalize it, and it will be coming as a self-evocative intrapsychic structure whenever the child faces stressors in his later life. So for a suicidal patient, if we are able to evocate this intrapsychic structure when the patient coming to you, it will be helpful to soothen him or soothing his thinkings. So in the pre-suicidal state, the distressed individual should be able to accept and use comforting experience and feelings that were previously internalized in childhood as a source of self-soothing and comfort. The role of the family and the therapist as facilitating this process, counteracting thoughts and impulses, and thus playing an essential role in suicide prevention. By projects from the past, current family members can therefore play a powerful role in changing the dynamics of the pre-suicidal state and thus altering the outcome. Many suicidal patients have ambivalent relationship with family members, and they are at risk for abuse, neglect, violence, and resentment. Engaging family members in the therapy of a suicidal patient therefore poses its own risk, because I already told you, when the patient is not having a good relation with a particular family member, it is better to avoid that family member from the therapeutic alliance or from the therapeutic setting. Thoughts, addiction, and risky behaviors. The next particular parental affective mirror. It is nothing. Suppose when a baby is crying, the parent may make a sad face to reflect the infant's sad affect, followed by the parent's gentle words and a comforting smile that we all do. It's okay, baby, don't cry. I will be with you. This is what parental affective mirror. The infant feels loved and understood, and therefore stops crying. But these normally we adults do this affect regulation by ourselves when we come face stresses. A suicidal patient, pre-suicidal patient, those affective significantly altered by severe depression or psychosis, and we suggest that a therapist or family member temporarily provide empathetic affective mirroring, like as we did by our mother in our early childhood with us, while because it helps us in instilling the hope and providing comfort in the face of pre-suicidal stage. The therapist can support and nurture the patient to some extent, but his or her role may not be as powerful as the family's role. So, for example, why? Because the family's role is very important in the therapy session. A brother may respond to the sympathy of his sister more powerfully than the sympathy of a therapist. So, possibly because his sister's presence evokes long ago positive memories where she looked after and supported him as a child. Then family addiction, how we can improve it. In families with a history of trauma, disrupted family bonds, it is hard to retain a sense of family cohesion. In that case, families are still able to retain some interpersonal bondness, which we will we posit that family adhesion includes bonds that are less close than those of family cohesion. Adhesive bonds between family members could arise from a sense of duty, family structure, religious reasons, or marital or filial responsibilities. So, traumatized but resilient family members have useful skills to teach each other to cope with moments of crisis and loss in order to foster healing and post-traumatic growth. The thing is that we at times binded up with certain relationships, not just because we like the relationship, but because we have certain duties, responsibilities associated with that particular individual. So, or we have a traumatic experience in the past, so we are very resilient enough to comfort this particular stress. So we involved in relationship, even if we know that the relationship is of not that much to you, but we maintain that sanctity of the family. This happens in most of the families. So there are certain strategies to develop adhesion in families. Such strategies are keeping positive distance, problem focusing coping, seeking social support, positive reappraisal. Then forming a new family. This is the third measure in role of the family in preventing the suicide. Forming a new family is not going and starting a new life again with a new member or a new family. Not like that, as we think, as the term described. This occurs in settings. This forming of new families occurs in settings of war, homelessness, natural disaster, severe substance abuse, physical and sexual abuse, crimes, and imprisonments. And mentioned authors noted that perception of social support is a major predictor of lower levels of suicide ideation, independent of depression and hopelessness severity. So, forming a new family is nothing. Participating in group therapy, date treatment, psychosocial recovery centers, substance abuse programs, and inpatient residential care programs. These are some ways for patients to interact with each other in a therapeutic setting. I think by now we understood what is a forming a family. It is not getting into a new family and living again. It's not like that. You should have alternatives, as I discussed, certain ways. As I discussed, like group therapy, day treatment, psychosocial recovery, etc. So it is important to plan how to engage the family in the therapy of a suicidal patient. The crisis family therapy, which we do during the crisis period when a patient comes to emergency for suicide patients, most often occurs in an inpatient setting because in emergency settings. The therapy starts in the emergency room and continues after the patient is admitted. So this is what is called crisis family therapy. Details are not discussing here. During a family therapy, we have to consider some to maintain the confidentiality the patient had with us, so or of the case. So because some patients, so it should be under discussing with the patient. Then very large family group, the patient may not able to offer himself a very large distance. This need to only very significant others in the family meet. More than one clinician or a therapist. Of course, as we know, it is one clinician or therapist. More than one clinician or therapist will be always a good choice for therapy. That's why than actually I did. Sorry for that. Some of you are able to follow, and some of you may be. And I would especially I would like to thank Dr. Amit and Dr. Madhumita, my co-speakers, because of them I got a chance for being here. Thank you, Amit and Madhumita, for giving me the chance.
Thanks, sir, for giving your valuable time. Thank you all our speakers for such a wonderful session. The whole session was very beneficial for all of us, and hope our participants are satisfied with the topic. Now it's a question answer session. Shall we move forward?
Yeah. I think all the three speakers, if we can see you all. Thank you very much. As a team, you all have up. Thank you so much. I would also like to inform the audience here, the participant, that Madhumita and Amit are couples. So that was not, maybe many of them may not be knowing. That's why I'm taking this liberty, Amit, to inform the participants. And Mittu is a part of our team. So thank you for your wonderful deliberation. Actually, Nishant is having some important meeting now. So he has told me just to continue with the session. If he will be able to join, he'll be coming back. So since we are late actually, so he had some appointment and he's having some meeting. So he'll be joining if he is back. So if we can go with the question of the session, Swati, what are the?
Yes, ma'am.
We have some questions here. Swati, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
So please, yeah, please come up with the questions with the from the
participant side. Okay, ma'am. Whether hereditary could be one of the factors of suicide, or if parents have such thoughts, children also will have similar ideas.
Any of the speakers may take up the question.
They are asking.
Yeah. Hereditary is a cause. Whether hereditary is a cause, and if somebody has
Yes.
Yeah, the heredity is definitely a positive factor. Even you can consider it as a biological factor also, and it can also lead to change in the family dynamics. So,
see, hereditary is a factor, of course, for the majority of the psychiatric disorders. But if we can provide a supportive environment, is having bipolar disorder. So if we know that the child has the chance, we all know that child has a chance to get the bipolar disorder at some point of time. So if we have an early prevention plan, so we can able to prevent that particular mishap from happening. Madhumita, something like that we can do. I want to add to it. Another part of the question is if parents harbor any kind of a suicidal thoughts, that actually increases the chance of children also may be having. Number one, that shows that one point of time the parents somehow lacking the problem solving skills. Maybe the parents may lack their emotion regulation. So those are the things that children. So that is how if any parents may have this kind of a problem. As a parent, they need to sort it out so that this doesn't go to the children. It's a suicide in the parents or in the family that increases the chance.
as one of the risk factors which needs to be identified by the family members. That is the message actually given by the speakers. Next question, if we have, Swati.
We have another question from the participant side, that how can we see the problem or subject to ethical perspective?
How can?
Is it?
How can we see the problem or subject through ethical perspective?
Ethical perspective.
Ethical perspective.
Yes.
Ethical perspective of suicide. I think that is what
Okay.
it is meant here.
Do they want to talk about euthanasia? Ethical perspective?
Yeah, sure.
What ethical perspective? What is the meaning of the question? If who has raised this question can come up and talk about what do you really mean by this ethical consideration of suicide?
Ma'am, actually the question is asked by the participant, how can we see the problem or subject through ethical perspective?
Problem means problem of suicide?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think that is what they mean.
Problem of suicide.
Problem of suicide and its ethical perspective. What is? It's not euthanasia. I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, one is great.
The law and
See, that is what the last final mental health act that we have 2017 already suicide is decriminalized because
I see the question. It is asked by someone named Shivani Mishra. So she's a MA PhD scholar doing research in ethical views on suicide and euthanasia. So she has asked a question that how can we see the problem of suicide through ethical perspective? So euthanasia is again I think a totally different thing. Yeah. So we discussed the risk factors that from chronic illness, chronic pain can definitely harbor suicidal thoughts, and in some countries they have a law that if they wish to end their suffering, they can do so lawfully. So it is like, what we can someone not all right with some people, some other people. It is that the person should commit suicide. So there are many factors involved. There is religion. There is the feelings of the family. There is the feeling, the right of the person who is suffering from such a illness for such a long time. So many factors are involved.
She might be feeling because she is doing research in ethical considerations. She might be questioning most probably the decriminalization of the suicide. So that we have done. So she might have a point in that. The decriminalization of suicide is done not telling the people you commit suicide. No, it was the echo behind the decriminalization of suicide is not helping the people to commit suicide. No, but so the people who feel to commit attempted suicides. So once the person has committed suicide, the police will go. Previously, the police will go to his house. If it is a fake suicide, then he has to he has to be taken to the jail. So actually, suicide as a psychological or psychiatric point of view, or as there are severe persons who have severe depression commit suicide. So we want to count all these people who is having certain psychosocial issue, certain psychological issue, or psychiatric issue. So that is why we have decriminalized the institution, decriminalized the suicide, so that we can able to treat them. They let them come to us. Suicide is ethically right in a very broad aspect. It is right.
she might having that. And the one more thing about this decriminalization is, if you really wanted to talk about decriminalization, then the person is already in immeasurable pain. That's in maybe in the family, maybe in the personal level, that person is again come in front of the law or facing another problem, and that really becomes a trauma for the person. That is
may again push him
to the thinking of suicide again. Considering this one, euthanasia, now that can have a very personal opinion from our side, that a person if suffering from long, maybe some major ma'am,
And it is
you
not
want to say
accepted. Yeah, I actually wanted to say it is not legally accepted. Euthanasia in India, I don't think it has been accepted. I don't know if I can add on to it. And removing that criminalization of suicide is again helping us to remove the barriers for coming up for care and help. That was one of the barriers when it was not legally, it was criminalized, and suicide was taken as a act of crime. So many people were not coming forth for treatment, seeking has helped us decriminalization has helped us to remove the barriers, and coming forth seeking help has become had been promoted here. That's what that is one thing which I wanted to add. Yes, Amit, you wanted to say something, huh?
Let's go for
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions?
Can we move towards
I
another
think I was
question?
right, Madhumita. What I said was correct. Removing the because you all are champions now today, so I was just adding to it. Swati, any more questions
Yes, ma'am. One
from the
question
house?
related to suicide.
Swati is
Entire family committing suicide by any way, can we prevent such cases? What are the warning signs?
entire family
Mass suicide.
committing suicide.
very important question.
So
Mass suicide. Yes. So one is withdrawing from the pleasurable activities. If at least we have observed that family that they are at least taking one meal together. Maybe sometimes they go out together. Sometimes they watch TV together. Those things has stopped. They have stopped going out and interacting with people, other people. मोहल्ले का कोई भी shop में maybe one or two family members chat and have share their those probably have stopped. So these can be the warning signs, I guess. And as any of the family member, if they could have come, or if any of the family members can come or reach out to any having a psychiatric illness or some other behavior. अभी हमारे पास ऐसे ओपीडी में पेशेंट्स आते हैं रिम्पास में सीआईपी में कि जहाँ पे बहुत सालों तक एक फैमिली मेंबर working in highly official post, but they still not aware about that schizophrenia illness is existing. They think that कि ये सब जानबूझ के हो रहे हैं और ट्रबल मेकर है फैमिली में, है ना? तो जहाँ लोगों को ये पता चलता है कि कोई भी फैमिली मेंबर ऐसा कुछ इश्यूज शेयर कर रहा है जहाँ पे फैमिली में देयर इज any kind of a mental illness, or maybe the family is running by some sort of major crisis, we probably not only as mental health professionals but also as a society, healthy citizen, also we need to try to offer our help and support. It's not that कि हमेशा कोई celebrity को उसके लिए suicide करना जरूरी है, तब हम लोग I remember when we started in Loreto School way back in 2012. There was 3 students in class 9, the same section. The 3 students committed suicide from the same section of class 9. In the same month. Definitely there will be more time which the other students we have also, if we could have given some training to the teachers or maybe the other students. So that's how our whole spirit awareness comes into this. Not playing much role as before. Because in the earlier days we used to even simple city example, we used to share the subjects we used to make at homes. Nowadays it is a very status factor. Like how can everyone eat in their house or share something which they cook? So these type of interactions are reduced because of the flat culture also. So the family set up inside within them and they socially isolate themselves and nobody knows what is happening inside. And because of our very fragile ego, we feel very bad to discuss with others the problems. You can discuss to 2-3 members, so it will help us in solving the problem. So this is also not there because of our. I guess Amit also wants to talk about this excessive dependence on digital media. That is also may
I would like to add 2 things. These mass suicides are again, as I pointed out earlier, also, suicide when we begin our talk, that suicide is nothing new. It is happening. It was happening before this pandemic. It is happening now, and just because we are confined to our watching the news more and much more that is much more reporting, much more media coverage that we are able to know that the number of suicides have increased. So suicide was there before pandemic. Suicide is occurring during pandemic. Mass suicides were there before pandemic. There was a case in Kanke where a whole family they have hung themselves. There was a case in Main Road where a very good educated family they had committed mass suicide. Only one family member was able to be rescued. So the thing is, our social like Mittu madam pointed out, our social milieu has changed. Our social values have changed. We are not interacting. We are not like हम लोग काम करने जाते हैं और इतना काम करते हैं, इतना पैसे का इतना सारा जरूरत है कि हम लोग जब घर पे आते हैं तो शाम के 8 बज जाते हैं. उस टाइम में हम लोगों को अपने घर पे खाना बनाना है, बच्चों को पढ़ाना है. तो एक जो शाम का एक पहले एक माहौल रहता था कि शाम में आए, थोड़ा चाय पड़ोसी के साथ में बैठ के चाय पे थोड़ा सा गपशप कर ली, थोड़ा अपना बात बता ली, थोड़ा उनका बात जान ली, है ना. ये चीजें चेंज हो रही है. हम लोग पिकनिक्स को भी पहले संडे लोगों के संडे फ्री हुआ करते थे पहले, है ना. लेकिन आजकल वो संडे फ्री नहीं है. हम लोग पिकनिक पे नहीं जाते हैं, हम लोग अपनी बातें शेयर नहीं करते हैं. और अब करंट जो है पेंडेमिक सिचुएशन, जहाँ पे लोगों ने बोला है, WHO ने बोला है कि आप 6 फीट दूरी से बात करिए, सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग रखिए. लेकिन सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग रखने के लिए बोला है, इमोशनल डिस्टेंसिंग रखने के लिए नहीं बोला है। तो हम लोग फोन अगर हमारे पास में फोन है और हम लोग अपने फोन से बहुत ही ज्यादा प्यार करते हैं ना, तो हम लोग अपने नियर एंड डियर क्लोज जो हमारे सिटी में जो हमारे फ्रेंड्स हैं जिनके पास में हम लोग जा नहीं पा रहे, उनको हम लोग जाके कम से कम हमसे हम बात कर सकते हैं। जो हमारे नेबर्स हैं हम उनसे थोड़ा दूर होकर बात कर सकते हैं। हम लोग अपनी सोसाइटी मीटिंग कर सकते हैं, देख सकते हैं। जैसे मैंने बोला कि क्या हम लोग इतना गरीब हो गए हैं कि अगर कोई एक फैमिली या 10 फैमिली के पास में पैसा नहीं है, का राशन नहीं है, तो क्या हम लोग उनको सस्ते नहीं कर सकते? क्या उसके लिए सोनू सूद और प्रधानमंत्री की योजना ही जरूरी है? हम लोग उतना कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं। तो आई थिंक we need to go back to our original old cultures. We need to take something for what was good from them and again हमको थोड़ा सा अपने पुराने कल्चर से थोड़ा सा अच्छा ही निकाल के उसको थोड़ा फॉलो करना पड़ेगा, ताकि ये जो मॉडर्नाइजेशन के जो इविल्स हैं वो हम लोग उससे डील कर पाए।
Thank you. But any more questions? I think can be permitted. No.
Okay, ma'am.
Because
Ma'am, there is one question related to Shashank Singh's death.
There was one very good question I was seeing from someone named Anjali.
Okay, yeah, yes.
Not able to are you?
Yes.
There was one question from Anjali.
Anjali Rao.
Anjali Rao, yeah.
Can you just check?
Checking.
It's Anjali Seth. Go, sorry. If you're there, ma'am, so please.
My question was that what are the skills which we can build in child? So the child face the life's challenges in a more confident way.
Okay, wonderful.
It is a very, very, very good question. And recently, while this pandemic started, and we got the time to actually got the time to study a little bit, because obviously we are not so much studious. So there is a very good program going on. The name of the lady, Doctor, yeah. There's one lady who is working with Dr. Seligman, and they have started a program on building optimism among children, in children. So I think that a very good source, Ms. Anjali, that you can look that book, and they have started a program, and they have pointed out to build optimism right from the start, so that our child, when they go into the future, they are equipped with skills so that they can handle stress. Okay.
Yeah, Madhumita, I think you can add on. Yeah.
Actually, typically we are discussing that impact is very, very important. That we teach this skills for resilience, skill for problem solving, and communication skill. Because parents and teachers are the main sources from where teachers, students, children, a child can learn that how to communicate. How. See, for example, bullying. If a child is getting bullied by his or her peer, how to just simply, be assertive and say that अगर तुम ऐसा बोलोगे, मैं खेलने के लिए आया था, अगर तुम ऐसा बोलोगे, मैं नहीं खेलूंगा, है ना? या how just to laugh at, उससे क्या होता है? Just to laugh at the peer who is, making a joke of it, to even communication skills, how to be, how to solve very small problems of daily living. Many times we actually mock some situations with children. जैसे अगर मेरे बच्चे जिस ऑनलाइन क्लासेस चल रहे हैं, अगर मान लो कि मुझे ऐसा फील हो रहा है कि मेरे बच्चे बहुत शाई है, मेरे बच्चों को टीचर्स बुला नहीं रहे हैं ना, या ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं दे रहे हैं, हाउ डज दिस मैटर, है ना, हमारे लिए मैटर नहीं कर रहा है, मे बी फॉर दैट स्मॉल चाइल्ड. सो हम लोग इसको parents become a teacher and the children become students. कैसे वो parents टीचर नहीं बताएंगे, तो कैसे अपना बातें बताना है कि मैं मैंने ये किया है, मैं मेरा होमवर्क थोड़ा देख लीजिए. That is how the situation get involved and involved in. So these are the ways to make more resilience, teach children how to monitor build up resilience and relations with children. And I'm just and life skill education for upper primary to primary school children, to which they are teaching them emotional regulations, assertiveness. This is a way of difference of their elderly life. So things are exactly giving these kind of information available. WHO is providing.
And Manisha ma'am,
Yeah.
I think it is a very good topic for the next webinar. Building optimism.
Yeah.
Why do we need optimism, especially now?
So the same team will present, I think. The same team, I'll invite the same team for this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And adding on to this question, since you all have already answered all the things to Miss Anjali, I would just say parenting skill is also very important over here. Apart from individual resilience, life skill and emotional things which you all have talked about, parenting skill, because nowadays what has happened is we have all become very mechanized, and not the supportive environment which we should provide to our child, and the caring environment, the emotional environment in the family, that those things are somehow being very mechanical in the family, and we are just wanting production from the child also. That is your results, your attitude, you should live this way, you should, all these things should also, since that also creates an type, I think, and he the parents. So his education with the parents is not very effective, which should be the bonding suffers, and he is not able to express what he is going through. This is what my observation is, that we as a parents also need to understand that this bonding, that emotional and communicative skills at home should also be very conducive, so that the child and the members come out with their problems or the stress that they are going through. That will help, I think.
Yeah.
So with this, if there is any more questions, or should we wind up? It's already, I think, it's already too late. I hope, Anjali ma'am, you have your question has been taken care of.
Anjali ma'am actually wanted to speak something.
Yes. I want to ask one question. Like when I'm meeting students or kids, what I'm feeling is that they are becoming very much self-aware, but they are very poor at self-regulation. So in your next session, can you please guide us in how to help children in regulating their poor emotions or negative emotions? That will be very thankful.
Thank you. We will take care of that, your suggestion. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
So, and I think it was a very active participation from the audience here. And with this, I think, Swati, we can wind up today's webinar. And before that, I'm really very thankful to Amit and Madhumita and Mittu for your wonderful deliberation. And it was very informative, I would like to say. And we have really been enriched. I have learned so many things which I had forgotten back. And this is very alarming and challenging time for all of us, not only not only we as a professionals, but other stakeholders in the society also. They also need to come forward to please generate awareness among people and lower down this risk and understand the early warning signs which we receive from the people, so that we can save one life. That would be wonderful. From if this webinar saves any one life, that will be the best answer to it. With this two words, I'll go back to Swati. Conclude the session.
Thanks, ma'am, and I'm gratitude to this opportunity on this platform. Thank you, ma'am.
We will continue this, and I am really looking forward to organize that webinar on optimism, because
You just give us the date and time, we will have it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's hear for a minute. So, you want to say something?
Yes, respected dignitaries, seniors, juniors, and all the participants. And finally, we came to the end of the session. I would like to say a thanks to our respected Dr. Manisha Kiran ma'am, Dr. Nishant Goyal sir, Dr. Amit Sharma sir, Dr. Madhumita ma'am, and Dr. Mittu ma'am for giving their valuable time and sharing their views with us for their busy schedule. And also, I would like to thank you for the active participation in today's presentation to cite a biopsychosocial approach to everyone. Thank you all for your attention, and thank you once again, one and all, for joining us today. And hope we will see you soon next time on the coming topic.
So good night and happy Independence Day to everyone. Thank you.
Okay.